What is up, you guys? Justin Rivas here. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about vlogging cameras, and specifically the Panasonic G7 or the new G85 versus the Canon 70D and the 80D. I've done lots of talking on my channel about the Panasonic G7, also done over 120 vlogs with it, but the question I always get asked is, should I buy this or should I buy a Canon 70D or 80D? Very similar camera, so let's talk about that. The main reason that people are after the 70D and the 80D and why it's so popular with vloggers is how well it focuses. Canon has this dual pixel CMOS technology that works so well for smoothly focusing on people and adjusting really quickly. And that's important in vlogging because you're whipping the camera around, you're showing lots of things off, and you want that focus to be able to pick up. And there is no system out there that is fast as Canon. Sony is close, but a lot of the high-end Sony cameras don't have the flip-out selfie screen like this that allow you to see yourself. And so you can't always get access to their, kind of fancy technology that's similar. So I would say that is like the biggest reason that people are picking Canon. I mean, obviously Canon, they make amazing video platforms. Their cameras are solid, so many lens options. There's a lot of positives to Canons, but there's also some negatives. Let's talk specifically about the 70D, which is a fantastic all-around camera for photography and videography. But I will tell you, it's a heavy platform, especially compared to something like the Panasonic Micro Four Thirds. The lenses are bigger, the bodies are bigger, it's overall much more heavy, and that makes a big difference for when you're, holding a camera and moving around all day. That the Panasonic system's like just over a pound, and I mean, a lot of it depends on which Canon glass you end up picking up, but you're easily at 2 to maybe 3 times the amount of weight for, a similar setup to something like the Panasonic. So if weight is important to you and you're maybe not jacked like some of these big vloggers or Casey Neistat, who is, very strong, and you want something that's a little bit of a lighter package, something like the Panasonic might make sense. 70D as well does not shoot 60 frames per second, so if you like slow motion and slowing things down as a part of kind of the cinematography or some of the stuff you're doing with vlogging, don't pick a 70D because it can't shoot at 60 frames per second. The 80D can shoot at 60 frames per second, and so that makes it a really good option. Maybe the other hindrance to a 70D or an 80D is price. They are much more expensive than something like this G7. I think a 70D and the new G85 are going to be pretty close in price, but the G85 is kind of a completely different beast. Now let's talk a little bit about the Panasonic systems and why you might choose these. If 4K matters to you, then you need the Panasonic. The 80D or the 70D do not shoot in 4K. The new Canon 5D Mark IV does shoot 4K, but that's like, $3,500 camera, and that's in a completely different league. But these cameras shoot 4K, the G7 and the G85. They also shoot both of them at 60 frames per second, so you can slow it down and get that nice slow motion. I found that the mic jack on these is very, very resilient. If you're a regular watcher of Casey Neistat, you will know that he breaks his microphone jacks all the time. I've never had a problem with this. I maybe haven't done as many vlogs as him, but this camera goes everywhere and it's always sitting on the mic jack. Hasn't been a problem. Obviously, the size and the weight is an important thing. The new G85, what really sets it apart is the fact that it has in-camera stabilization. Meaning that as you're moving the camera around, the actual sensor inside the camera is shifting to offset some of that shake. That is something that the G7 does not have, the 70D does not have, the 80D does not have, and so that's going to lead to smoother footage. Now, it doesn't work with all image stabilized lenses. It works with the new ones, and I think they're going to release more firmware updates to work with more of them, but in the case of this combination right here, which is the Panasonic 7 to 14 millimeter, this is not an image stabilized lens. And this G7 does not have the in-body stabilization, so it cannot be as smooth as maybe some other options. Now, when you're shooting really, really wide, naturally it looks a little bit smoother, but I'm looking forward to picking up the G85 so that I'm able to add that extra little bit of stabilization and smoothness. So that's kind of the big thing with the G85 over the G7. The other thing that the G85 gets is it is splash proof and dust proof, and it's a little bit more weather resistant. So when you mix that with a lens like this guy, which is weather sealed, it means you can take it into slightly more harsh environments and it's going to be okay. But I can tell you that it's cold today, like it's snowing out, and I've had this, not in like torrential downpours, but in a little bit of water. I took it to Mexico on the beach, and even though it says it's not weather sealed, it's performed quite well for me. So I'm not too concerned about that, but the G85 gets a slightly more robust chassis, and I think it's like more magnetic magnesium and a little bit better. The other thing about the G85 over the G7 that is actually really nice if you're into photography is on the G7, the memory card slot has been down here. And what that means is that you can't get a vertical grip, which if you're a photographer, it means you can turn this on the side and you can shoot pictures this way. They haven't been able to do that because then you couldn't get the SD card slot. But in the new camera, they've moved up to the side, and there's now a battery grip option. And for me, I used to have like big Nikon full frame camera with the battery grip and all the big lens because I did a lot more photography. I've since sold that to invest more in this platform, but I still do some photography, and I'm really excited about that for the G85, is getting that battery grip and making it a little bit more serious for you photo enthusiasts out there. But otherwise, I would say the G7 is a very, very solid option for vlogging. It's the cheapest out of the 4 cameras we're talking about. Even with the kit lens that's with it is actually a half decent lens, and I've been able to use that. And it is such a light package. And it's so much more compact and small. And so if you're worried about kind of the visibility and maybe you don't want to throw a shotgun mic on here and the giant tripod and do this, I think you're really, really going to like that as a platform. But again, kind of looping back around here, 70D and 80D. If you don't need 4K and image state or focusing is the most important thing to you, those cameras are amazing. Also, if photography is a bigger part of your mix, you're going to get slightly better photos out of the bigger sensor size on those cameras. But if it's really about vlogging and video, and you can live with still what is a very good focusing system, sometimes you have to give it, a little bit of time to catch up, or the lens that's on this camera right now is a 12mm 1.4, and when you're at those really, really like low apertures, meaning the background is super blurry, the camera does have to work a little bit harder to find that focus, and you have to give it a little bit more time. But once you get used to that, go watch my last, maybe not the last vlog, but watch from vlog 100 through 115 on this system, and you'll see that the focus is generally spot on. If you have a G7 or a G85 and the focus is not performing well for you, I have another video on my channel about my vlogging settings. You need to get it in a single point autofocus and work with the camera a little bit. But overall, I found the focus to be plenty good enough, and it is so rare that the focus actually ruins my shot. But you got to learn the camera a little bit and get used to it. I think with the 70D and the 80D, they're a lot more dummy-proof on the focusing side. Okay, so if that's the most important thing to you, get that. But you're trading off in that you don't get the 4K, you don't get the slow motion on the 70D, and you're adding a lot more weight in that system. Whereas Micro Four Thirds, very light, very agile. Video quality is amazing, especially you're shooting at 4K. Oh, the picture is beautiful, especially when you put some quality lenses on it. So yeah, I would say that's kind of overall my take on it. I am getting a G85. I'm going to move the G7 to my second camera. I may find a tiny little lens and make this my stealth mode camera. The GH3 I'm recording on, I'm going to sell. And I'm really excited and looking forward to that G85. 70D and 80D, very good. I've seen lots of vloggers with them. 2 of my clients have 80Ds that their social media people are shooting with. Fantastic cameras. I don't say anything bad about either of those cameras. They're amazing, but heavy, no 4K, no slow-mo on the 70D, and they're more money. So, trade-offs, you got to decide for yourself. But hopefully that helps. Any questions? Let me know. I'm Justin Rivas. Thanks for watching.